Hello and welcome to episode 1323 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, July 26th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
Better than you. And I don't say that to be nasty to you. I say that because I know that you're on the IL.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened last night at softball, Justin.
Legging out a single, man, and I just pulled my hamstring like old men do. So, it was. At least I was safe, right? Like I
You
beat
beat
out
it out.
infield single and popped my hamstring. So, it's gonna be. I'm in a lot of pain. It's gonna be pretty painful here for the next week or so. But hopefully, I'll take a couple weeks off and be ready for playoffs.
Well, hopefully you're all right. We don't think it's torn right now, but don't ignore it if it lingers. And good luck moving around because that is very painful. He did drive home with it. I broke my ankle one time playing softball. Both of us clearly showing that we should not be playing. But I had to drive home. It was my right leg. Yours was your left. I used my bat for the gas pedal and then my left foot for the brake. And I made it. It was fine. Was it safe? No. But it was indeed fine. So I hope you feel better ASAP. I do have a weird positive memory about my broken ankle. I know it's kind of bizarre, but that was when I learned of and binged about the Up and In podcast with Kevin Goldstein and Jason Parks. And they probably had 6-7 episodes out. And they used to go marathon. And I listened to those first 6-7 episodes. I just kept repeating them because I was just holed up at home, broken ankle, couldn't do much. Listened to them fresh, and I was like, you know what? I want to listen to these again. If you missed the Up and In podcast experience, what a great podcast it was. Did you listen to that?
I wasn't a regular listener, but I definitely listened on occasion, and I love Kevin Goldstein. Like one of my favorite guest spots was going on the podcast with him when he would do his team previews. He was looking for a Giants guy, and he didn't know any. And somebody at Fangraphs was just like, "Hey, just talk to Justin." And was like,
we got one.
So, he's just one of my favorite people to listen to. So, I'm definitely going to be listening to some podcasts because I'm not going to be doing much of anything else other than like writing.
Buy a PS5 and play college football.
Oh man, I'm so tempted. I am so tempted. Like it's like
I got the starting job at Bowling Green.
Nice.
But I'm horrible. Oh my God, I had the worst game ever last night. Two touchdowns, 4 picks. 2 of them were taken back for touchdowns. So I threw 4 touchdowns technically, but 2 of them went to the other team. So it was a rough game in the rain for old Charlie Sporer, obviously named after Charlotte. But anyway, not here to talk college football. We got some baseball to talk about. We got some trades, Justin. We got some trades, and they're like impact. So we're going to talk about a couple trades, then we'll get into the 2 steps. We're kind of blessed with this trade info to talk about, but then also the fact that it's kind of a light 2-step week next week for a couple reasons. One, a bunch of aces are going, and we don't talk about the aces because you don't need us to tell you to start Paul Skeens and Corbin Burns. But 2, the uncertainty of the trade deadline, I think, has some things up in the air. There were a lot of teams that don't have a 2-start guy, and I think that's because dust needs to settle both over the weekend and early next week. So there could be a lot of changes even to the guys that we do have. But let's talk about these 2 moves that did happen. Neither of them will affect anything from a 2-step standpoint, but they should have some fantasy impact. Now, the one bummer is that neither is a cross-league trade, and I know our AL and NL folks out there, they love the cross-leaguers because that's bringing talent into the league. But these are still huge moves that could have some fallout. Randy Arozarena going to Seattle. Now, this is surprising in that it's a big name and a big prominent piece from the Rays recently, but it's not surprising when you know anything about the Rays, right? He's about to start costing more money.
Yeah.
He's not having his best season. This also isn't an automatic white flag for Tampa Bay either, right? Like they know, especially the Arozarena that we've gotten this year. He's been one WAR. Replacing that won't be hard. Now, if he goes on to be Arozarena that put up 3 wins the last 2 years, and does, plays at that pace for the rest of the year, okay, that's a bigger difference. But what they lost today was a one WAR player through 100 games, and they feel like, okay, we can replace that. So I don't even think that that's them waving the white flag. I know they traded Savali as well. This is just what the Rays do. They're going to trade some of these more expensive pieces, hope that some of their minor leaguers can cover the gap and still kind of have 1 foot into this competition, even though they're only 1 game over 500. The real big move, of course, is for Seattle here, getting a middle of the order guy, because even though Rosarena has struggled, he's still an upgrade for Seattle without a doubt. And as you mentioned offline when we were talking about this, unfortunately, this kind of only gets them back to neutral because they recently lost Julio Rodriguez. And JP Crawford, I might add, because the first thing you said after this was, well, now they need a middle infielder. They got their outfielder, now they need a middle infielder. The biggest bummer, though, is even a big move for a middle infielder would also just bring them neutral. So they could have 2 big ads that only bring them back to where they were before July 21st when they lost J-Rod and Crawford on back-to-back days. But let's talk about Arozarena in Seattle. What do you think about this here? What's been going on with his season? And are you worried that maybe Seattle isn't the right park for him to turn it around? What do you think of Arozarena as a Mariner?
Well, as Henry in the chat is saying, Randy did great the last 2 months. Like he's actually turned everything around, and one of the reasons his stats even look as decent as they do right now, at least from a batting average standpoint, is because he's been so good over the last couple months. So, like, I think he's Randy Arozarena. I'm not super worried about the park. It's not like Tampa Bay is the greatest park in the world, anyways.
True.
And I think he's just a good hitter. So like I think Arozarena is going to be fine. I think this is exactly what Seattle needs, especially once they've now that they've lost J-Rod. I don't think J-Rod's supposed to be out a super long time, if I'm remembering correctly.
Sprained ankle should not be, a forever type of thing here. Frustrating to be sure, but if things go well, they should eventually add him back in relative short order. So then you're adding Arozarena to the mix, and then that's huge. So it's not going to be a minimum stay, but it's not supposed to be much over that for J-Rod.
I definitely think they need to add another infielder, someone up the middle, and that can, hopefully play shortstop in the short term until JP Crawford is back, and then someone who can just replace Jorge Polanco, who's just been garbage.
Paul DeYoung?
Maybe. I mean, I would think that Dipoto will go after somebody of bigger consequence. I mean, Mariners, like, they need to keep pace with the Astros because there's so many really good teams in the American League that second place in that division may not make the playoffs.
And the Rangers aren't going anywhere. Like, they're 51 and 52. They're lurking. The Rangers are lurking on
right there.
Seattle's ass. Paul DeYoung, I just first name I threw out, right? The first couple teams we think of when we're talking trades, White Sox, Rockies, Marlins right now, those are like, and the A's, like those are the 4 teams that they're definitely out. And there's a few others. They could get somebody better. DeYoung would be an upgrade on Polanco. That's how bad Polanco's been, because DeYoung hasn't exactly been amazing. He has like a 92 WRC plus or something like that last I checked. So that wouldn't be a huge upgrade. And I agree they should go out and make a bigger move than DeYoung. But if that's what they settled for, that wouldn't be the end of the world. What about the fallout in Tampa Bay? So who I think this might really help? Actually, no, he's already been playing a lot. I was going to say Richie Palacios, but he's playing every day at second base right now. So in the outfield, they now have.
I think what it could do is Brandon Lau's been, pretty darn good. Read about him last night in the Red home run. I think what this allows him to do is move Palacios out to left,
and that's what Roster Resource agreed. Because I saw his name next to left field, but he's been playing second base all week. But there you go. You're saying Lau to second, Palacios to left field, and now
they can bring up Caminaro. And I think you've got like your replacement right there. Like Caminaro is finally back off the IL. He's been back for about a week now. And I think this now opens up a spot for him where they don't have to, put someone down. Like Curtis
they would kill somebody to bring him up. They were talking about putting somebody down.
They were thinking like they were going to put down Curtis Mead. So
they should put down Taylor Walls.
They should definitely do that as well. So,
and by that we mean send him to AAA, and that's the only thing we would possibly mean.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
So I think that this just opens up spots for a guy like Caminaro. Ronda's is hurt right now, so I don't think he's coming up anytime soon. But I think for sure, Caminaro should be probably on his way to the majors here pretty quick.
So you
Uh,
jump where you can right now, right? We talk about NFBC where
yeah,
you can't add a guy if they're not already in the pool, but a lot of leagues are open with minors. You'd go out and get Caminaro right away as a
well,
spec.
and in most NFBC leagues, Caminaro was drafted, so I think he's going to be available on a lot of wires. So
That's a good point.
I would go and check in those leagues like NFBC where maybe Caminero was already drafted and could be available. So yeah, I my guess is he will be the guy called up, and this is one of the reasons why I think like you mentioned it's kind of the top of this segment. Like I don't necessarily know that this means that Tampa Bay is packing it in. They definitely
Exactly.
could be. I mean, at this point, they're in fourth place in the division. 9.5 games back of the Orioles, and I don't know if that's going to be good enough for them to make the playoffs. But they're not too far out in the wild card, so they may just decide, hey, we may trade some pieces, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily giving up.
And that's totally how I view this with the Rays. That we're going to bring up Caminaro. Again, they haven't said that. This is just in speculation, but I agree with it. We bring up Caminaro. If he goes off, he covers the Arozarena loss, and we're fine. This is a financial move. Same with the Savali move. Those two guys, especially for where Arozarena was this year, which was a bit lower, and like you and Henry pointed out, he's been playing as himself for quite a while now, but the beginning of the season was wretched. So the composite is still one WAR, and that's how they look at it. We're replacing one win right now. We can do that. So yeah, don't be surprised if they make a run that would be classic Rays to trade Savalia, Rosarena, and then I don't know, some reliever like Colin Poche, and then go off and win, 10 of 12 and get fully back into this because that's just what they do. So anyway, and I do want to highlight Richie Palacios a little more. We talked about him. Like I said, Roster Resource has him going to left field instead of second base. He's an infield, outfield. Interesting guy. I actually drafted him in the main. Ended up being one of my early cuts because he wasn't playing as much. But now you look up, he's had a decent season. 5 homers, 17 steals with a 242 average. That's not a bad piece in a 15-teamer. Richie Palacios, not to be confused with his brother Josh, who plays in Pittsburgh, but is also a pretty good player, by the way.
Yeah.
Both solid guys there. All right, let's talk about the AJ Puck to Arizona move. This one's interesting, and again, you've got a team, Miami. They know where they're at. It's time. Pack it in. We're hearing Jazz Chisholm rumors. They already had traded. Oh wait, no, sorry. Hunter Harvey was a Nat when they traded.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Because I was gonna say they already traded him. No, I think I'm thinking of his dad, Brian Harvey, who was a Marlin. But anyway, they know they got to start making moves. We knew Puck was gonna go. Don't be surprised if another couple of these Tanner Scott
I
is
didn't
who
know.
I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I didn't know Puck was going to go. This was actually somewhat surprising.
Oh, you're surprised here. Okay, let's talk about it.
I think most people felt like I did, which was they're going to trade Tanner Scott, and then Puck was going to become the closer.
That was a viable spec. And I thought that was absolutely reasonable to do, but I definitely thought we lived in a world where both get traded.
Yeah, I mean, Puck is going to enter his first year of arbitration next year. So, I mean, I was a little bit surprised that he was the guy that they decided to move. But, I mean, at this point, I think anything that's not nailed down in Miami is likely going to go. So, I think, we're definitely going to see Tanner Scott go next, which will likely, I assume, the next man up is probably, Anthony Bender, maybe?
Or Nardog.
Well, if they trade Tanner Scott, then Nardi is the only lefty. So
and then there's lefty bias in terms of letting him close because he needs to be there for the big lefties earlier on. Yeah, so that's fair. Then I would probably pivot to Bender.
Yeah. So I mean, I also expect Miami to move like Josh Bell.
Yep.
And they could move other guys, but I mean most everybody else is in their mid 20s. So
do you see anyone benefiting? They got, by the way, we should point out that the Marlins got Davison De Los Santos. We didn't even say what the Rays got. because I think it was just prospects that aren't going to make a dent this year. But I
Yeah.
will look up those names real quick. But with Davidson De Los Santos, he's been in the news a little bit earlier this year when he was Rule 5'd by the guards. And I actually thought that they were going to keep him because they sent Kyle Manzardo down. I was like, yeah, you can't keep both. And okay, they send him down. You think, well, they'll keep Davison. They did not. They sent him back. I like this move for Miami. Davison De
I
Los
do too.
Santos is an intriguing bat to me. He's got a lot of pop. I think he's got big boy pop that can play anywhere, including Miami. It's a matter of can he avoid striking out. And he has taken a step forward with his strikeouts this year. He still has a lot of swing and miss. This is a
Yeah.
standard power guy, Davidson De Los Santos. It's one of those situations where if the strikeout rate is 30% under, and 30% is high, but if it's anything 30 and under, there can be enough power there for Davidson De Los Santos. Do you think they bring him up after the deadline? You mentioned them trading Bell. He is a first baseman. Davidson De Los Santos is. You think he comes up after the deadline? Would you be specking for him anywhere?
I think they definitely could. I mean, he's probably one of the best hitters on their team right now. So, especially if they move a guy like Josh Bell, which I expect them to do, then
Yeah.
I think he could definitely be a guy that they bring up as long as they just want to make sure he doesn't cross the rookie thresholds. I think he's, they're obviously a team that values those draft picks,
Right.
and so. But yeah, I think he'll make an impact here at some point in the second half. So just a matter of kind of them gaming out. Okay, how soon can we bring him up without risking, hurting his eligibility?
Right. I agree with that as far as Davison De Los Santos goes. But when he is called up to Miami, I am interested because he has enough pop to make a difference. By the way, Brody Hopkins, drafted in the 6th round last year, not doing anything in the minors yet. And Aiden Smith, 19 years old in A-ball. Those were the returns for the Rays. So yeah, neither of them doing anything.
I
right
saw
now.
some people talking about Aiden Smith and that he's a good little player.
Okay.
That might be interesting in your deeper dynasty leagues. Obviously going to the Rays is a good organization to develop in. So he's just a name to kind of file away for the future because, like I said, he is like 20 years old. So
like when they got
literally just turned 20.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like when they got Adames from the Tigers, when he was a child, and everyone's like, that's the guy to keep tabs on. In fact, I remember Eric even texting me. He said, good deal for y'all, but as a Tigers fan, he goes, but Willie's the one you're gonna lament. And he was dead on with that, as he often is. So Puck in Arizona, is he the guy now, or is he just the lefty version? Because Paul Sewald has not been himself, right? He's been a bit wobbly. They needed at least depth there. I don't know that they immediately push him out of the role. But the thing with Sewald, the reason I've actually never really been a believer, and by the way, I've been wrong in the last couple of years. He got 20 saves in 2022 and 34 last year. But the reason I've always been skeptical is the home run issue and how difficult that can be to succeed as a closer. And it's up to 1.5 homer per 9 this year, pushing his ERA to 3.70. Still has an 0.95 whip. There's still brilliant skills, 20% strikeout minus walk, but the homers create problems. And I wonder if they start to lift Sewald from the 9th a bit in favor of Puck. How do you see the Arizona closing situation now that Puck's out there?
Yeah, I don't even think that Puck is next man up in Arizona. I mean, they've got Kevin Ginkel there.
He's been terrible this year too, though.
I mean, I wouldn't. He's got a 2.64 ERA, 5 saves. Like he's been fine.
Terrible is a vast overstatement. I was thinking more of the whip jump because he was sub 1 last year, but I'm wrong. And the strikeouts were down. I thought they were more down, so that was my fault on Ginkel. He has not been quote unquote terrible. Paul fucking lax. He hasn't been quite as good as he was playoff Beloba, because I call him Ginkel Beloba, but he hasn't been quite that guy. But he's been fine. So my apologies there to Kevin Ginkel. I was wrong.
My guess is like if Sewald continues to struggle, then like they move to a committee of sorts, like where Puck and Ginkel share it, with Ginkel getting the majority of kind of the save opportunities. But I think this is terrible for Puck's, in terms of his fantasy value. Like it's
just cut him.
Kind of sucks. Yeah, I would not, like, all the places where I stash AJ Puck, like I'm dropping him now. Like I'm not going.
Yeah, because we had picked.
Go pick someone else up. Go pick up Ben Joyce or someone like that.
Yeah, because we had picked him up. Again, if you respect Puck, you were specking him for Scott to clear out the way for
Uh-huh.
Puck to close in Miami. So this is a bummer news. And don't sleep on Justin Martinez. Dude
I
averages
love
100.
Justin Martinez.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just one of the filthiest relievers out there right now that you might not know of. Has a high walk rate, so I'm not sure he's entering the closer's role, but this is one of those things where a guy with his talent, Justin Martinez, a really like good week with the control is going to make him look like the best reliever in baseball. Like that's all he's missing. So don't be surprised if he makes an impact quickly. He is an interesting dollar spec if you are nervous of Seawald. But I agree that Puck actually isn't. I would go for Martinez over Puck right now is what I'm kind of saying too.
Yeah. I
So
think I
I'll
might
go
too.
Ginkel, Martinez, and then Puck. So don't get caught up in the Puck stuff. If people are like, "Oh, he was traded, let me go get him." By the way, super bummed that Mason Miller broke a finger on his hand.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What was he mad about? Why did he?
I mean, at least
Okay.
it's a non-pitching hand, like, but like,
Oh, they're changing the story now. So what I'm referring to is originally it was that he's punched a table in frustration. And then now it's that Miller did not pound the table out of frustration, but rather he put his hand down awkwardly. Okay, we don't know what it is now at this point, then I guess.
I know I break my fingers all the time when I'm putting my hand down.
Just put my hand down awkwardly and my fingers just boom, start
I
blowing
mean,
up.
like I said, at least it's not his pitching hand, but
Yeah,
like if we thought there was a shot that Mason Miller was going to get traded, this definitely puts a damper on it. I don't think that
correct.
because it's not his pitching hand, like I don't think it's something where like he couldn't still get traded while on the IL, but um, it makes it a lot more difficult for
Agreed.
to see that the A's are going to trade him and put him on a contender. So
What
yeah,
about the potential backup here, Lucas Urseg, who I remember from
yeah,
DVR, our buddy Derek Van Riper promoting him as a Brewers hitting prospect.
he
Uh,
was,
he, he
yeah,
he had some acclaim back in the day. You know, it was like a dynasty episode, so we were talking deep league prospects, and DVR was shouting him out. So I always remembered the name, and then when he was coming up as a pitcher, I was like, this can't be the same guy DVR was talking about. Damn right it is. And he's become a pretty interesting reliever. He showed some flashes last year, and this year's been downright good. 3.79 ERA, 121 whip. Is he the guy, Lucas Urseg, that you're going for if you need the saves?
yeah. I think Urseg is most likely the next guy up in Oakland. However, they could just kind of go with a committee, which would be devastating if
Cool.
you need saves, because in Oakland, like they're not winning a lot of games. They're not
Yeah, as
scoring a
if
lot
the
of
saves
goals.
aren't rare enough. Now we're going to
And,
fucking split them.
and
Tyler
last,
Ferguson got one last night.
yeah, and Urseg, Scott Alexander, and Austin Adams all pitched in the game. So, I mean, I guess Ferguson might be the next guy up if you're looking at just the most, recent usage. But I think that this is probably a split job, which just sucks because, they might get 13 saves the rest of the way. And now you're going to split it between, you're going to split the next 5 between like, 4 guys.
Yep. I think that's where, like, again, if you're desperate, you got to do
Yeah.
something. And so I get it. You're going to put your Urseg bids. I am desperate in some leagues where I'm going to get in on Urseg, maybe a Ferguson bid, but keep the expectations modest and thus the bids modest. Don't get caught, putting a big Urseg bid because even if he is the dude, as Justin said, how many freaking saves are there going to be? All right. By the way, one guy we didn't mention with the Rays, don't be surprised if they trade Eflin too. Apparently, Astros, Braves, Cardinals all interested in him. He is such a
If they
Cardinals pitcher.
if they trade Eflin, then that tells me they're selling.
Depends
Like,
what they get. What if they get a major league pitcher in return?
I mean, I guess, but like Eflin's got like another year of control at a decent price.
Sure.
So like,
And we know how cheap they are. I'm just saying, like, what if Spencer Arrighetti goes back in the deal
yeah, I
and they
guess
just
that,
use him? And again, I don't know if Houston's doing that. How bad they
and
if
I mean
it,
they do have Jeffrey Springs who like threw
yeah.
a four inning minor league start the other day. So like Drew Asmussen hit 98 last night.
I was going to say, when's he due back?
Yeah, he's only going an inning at a time right now, Rasmussen.
Okay.
So I think he's still probably 2 or 3 weeks away. But
so they might not even need a major leaguer back. They might see Springs as a replacement and say, again, we got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We're cutting our money, but we're still good enough to compete. And they might, by the way, this is not me saying that the Rays will be in the playoffs or anything. I'm just saying they can straddle the line very well. They're a really good team at kind of playing both sides. Your favorite team, as you often lament, is terrible at it. They don't trade these 30-somethings.
Rumors are they're shopping Blake Snell and they're shopping all.
How happy would you be if they actually traded 3 or 4 old heads to really start the process of turning things
send off
around?
Conforto, send off Yastrzemski, send
Soler might actually return something. Maybe you could trade him.
Please just, fucking embrace the suck for once.
Once, just dive in on it. Yeah, so we'll see. I will say, I was nervous, and I still have a little bit of nerve of a tepid deadline.
I think it's going to be a fun one.
I'm turning on my original take that it was going to be modest. I think some teams are going to, they're going to step up and say, we have to make a firm decision and we're going to sell. And I think the Rays are maybe getting that started with the Rosarena deal. So here's hoping for a ton of trades, but let's get into some two-step pitchers. Like I said, a little bit of a shorter list due to uncertainty, plus a mix of aces that we're just not going to cover because they're obvious. Let's start with a guy who, if you had told me that on June 26th that we were going to have him on the two-start list as a question, I would have questioned you. I would have said, no way. Jordan Montgomery's an automatic guy. Of course he is. And by then he'll be fully in his groove and ready to rock. Justin, he is decidedly not in his groove. Where have the strikeouts gone? His swinging strike rate is more than cut in half from 15 to 7%, resulting in a devastating 6-point drop in his strikeout rate, which could not sustain a 6-point drop. 21% K rate was already modest for Montgomery, but he did everything else so well that you could kind of eat it. 15% you cannot. 6.11 ERA, 161 whip. What the hell's going on? And do you have any hope for him in a Washington at Pittsburgh two-step, which would normally be something you want to go for? Where are you currently with Jordan Montgomery?
Yeah, he just has not looked right this year. And you have to really wonder and think back to the fact that he missed all of spring.
Yep.
He signed really late. Now, in some regards, Montgomery's underlying numbers, they're not super terrible or super different from what they've been in the past. So I do have some hope that he can turn it around, but I think this is one of those, it's a pretty risky two-step just because he's been so bad. He looked better in his first start back from the IL, so that's encouraging. I think in 15s, you're probably rolling with this. But in 10s and 12s, I don't think there's any chance that I'm starting Jordan Montgomery.
I don't think so either. And
he shouldn't be rostered in those leagues.
I don't think so. Maybe the Hail Mary situation where you're really just trying to catch lightning in a bottle and you think maybe you can get a pre-2024 Jordan Montgomery somewhere. That's about it. And that would have to be a deeper 12 where maybe you guys are deeper rosters, so it almost plays more like a 14-teamer or something. Because I'm with you. I have no confidence in him right now. I was encouraged, like you said, about the start off the IL at KC. I actually watched that game. And it wasn't too bad. Only 2 Ks still, but you got a Jordan Montgomery vibe from it. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I am nervous. So yeah, I think there's a lot of guys on this list here that I would play over him, including the next guy, I think. And we don't know if this is going to happen because Baltimore is one of those teams that is uncertain and could easily pick up another starter or two. But right now, Cade Povich is at least in line to maybe be the 2-start guy. Toronto and at Cleveland, the young rookie, has had some rookie issues because that's what happens. But he's also shown some flashes. Despite the 6.27 ERA, if you've watched any of the Cade Povich starts, you see how it works, and you can see how this could be nice. Again, I don't know if he's going to get the 2-step, so just a quick word on Cade Povich, and we'll move on in case he ends up not getting it.
Yeah, I think you're just going to get the front end. They've got a doubleheader. They need another pitcher, but I think by the time we get to that second start later in the week, they're going to have the added pieces. I think the Orioles have to be aggressive here. Not only do they have like the most amount of firepower, but they also have the most amount of need in that rotation. And like they've got plenty of money to spend. Like this is a team that has not spent money on virtually anybody. In the offseason. Like they should have been in on Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell, and they weren't. Or at least they weren't to the point where they got either of them. So I expect that the Orioles will add at least one starter, if not two starters, and that Povich loses the second start. So I'd use him for the first one and take the gamble that maybe he's there, but it's not like going up against Cleveland for that second start is one you necessarily feel super comfortable with anyways. So if he loses it, it may be better than just, but I don't expect him to be a major league pitcher coming into the week.
Yeah, the front end one is Toronto for Povich, which is the easier of the two. So I agree you can spec on that for a deeper league, and then we'll see what happens with the second one. But I'm with Justin. I fully believe that somebody acquired between now and Tuesday will be in the rotation there to take that start. Cooper Criswell went to Coors and held strong. Nicely done there. And listen, I know it's the Rockies, right? And they're pretty terrible, but Coors is Coors. And they put 20 on somebody the next day, I believe. It was the day after that, after the Criswell start. So it's not like they can't do anything, but he went and put 7 scoreless up there, bouncing back from his 5 earned against KC. And Cooper Criswell has been a really intriguing find for Boston, especially for deep leagues. When you're looking at a 4.02 ERA, 123 WHIP, that's not too bad. Got beat up at Baltimore. You could have easily skipped that too. If you're curating him, you could have skipped the KC one. Now, in fairness, you would have also skipped the Coors one. So you can't just go through and cherry pick the bad ones that you would have missed. You probably would have sat Cooper Criswell at Coors. But does that build your confidence in him for a Seattle at Texas two-step where you had on Cooper Criswell?
I mean, Seattle is, as we've mentioned, like their offense has not been very good. They've been held up by their pitching. So like I don't mind that one. The Texas one, Texas has been better as of late. I don't know that I want to risk it. Criswell's one of those guys, like when he's bad, he's bad. But when he's good, like he's okay. The problem is like there isn't a massive amount of upside because he just does not strike out a ton of guys. And so like you're really
need a dub.
Yeah, you need a dub and you're streaming for ratios. And
which is tough.
When you're going up against Seattle, who's been a good team this year, and Texas, who seemingly is starting to turn things around, I don't know that you're in line for a lot of, you're really going to be in line for wins. So, like, I feel like outside of 15s, I'm probably not streaming Criswell this week. But I understand, like, maybe there will be some 12s where he's usable because you don't have better options.
That's what I think. I think 12s, I get there in a lot of scenarios with Criswell because his biggest issue is the strikeouts, and the Mariners have been the worst strikeout team against righties by a mile. When you're talking 29% versus 26, 3 percentage points from a team strikeout rate, that is a big gap. So that does kind of get me there, even though the at Texas, I do respect that Texas offense. But I like this. I think 15s is a firm yes for Criswell. 12s, I'm pretty open to it. I was encouraged by the Coors start, and Seattle strikeouts certainly encouraged me, and hopefully they can get at least the one win. At least Boston is a pretty solid team, 54-47. So I'm looking for a win, some strikeouts against Seattle, and hopefully not absolutely murdered at Texas for Criswell. We have graduation alert, I think. You can confirm if you agree, but I think we should be done for a little bit talking about Jameson Taillon on the 2-start list because I think he's just automatically there, but I wanted to at least broach the subject with you. At Cincinnati, home to St. Louis, a guy that you and I have liked for years. We've been on him since the Pittsburgh days, and every year hoping that, hey, get on track, really take that big step forward. We never really saw him emerge to the level that I think both of us thought maybe he could. Like when he had that 2018, we kind of thought, okay, the floodgates are open. He's going to be a firm number 2. I kind of thought he was going to be the next Jordan Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Jordan Zimmerman with the Nats, like that really, really solid number 2 guy. He's been a little bit worse than that, more of like a 3-4 type, but still very good. This year with the Cubs, excellent. 100 innings of a 2.96 ERA, 115 WHIP. Are we graduating Jameson Taillon off the 2-start list to where we're just automatically starting him?
Yeah, I think he is a must start at this point. I mean, you may put him in the should start tier if he's got a couple of tough matchups. I think the problem here is he's gonna be traded. He is like one of the top trade targets on this Cubs team. He's got one more year, I believe, or actually maybe even 2 more years of control. But the Cubs are shopping him around pretty hard. I think he's gonna get. Yeah, I think he is going to get moved here. So he has the potential he could lose one of these starts, though. With the trade deadline being on Tuesday, I mean, he may get to wherever he's going quickly enough to get into the rotation at the end of the week. So
exactly,
I don't want to write him off as he's not going to be a 2-star guy this week. We just don't know where that second start is going to be because he's not going to be going up against St. Louis. He's got a better chance of being on St. Louis than going up against them.
I couldn't agree more. I think that sums it up perfectly with Jameson Taillon. We love him. We're with him all year. Curious to see where he goes. Should add the win potential.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Taillon is, for the most part, when he's been healthy, he's been a very good pitcher over the course of his career. The issue has been health with him over the course of his career as well. So I think he's going to be, really, really good no matter where he ends up. The question is, I just have no idea what team is going to pull the trigger on him.
It's wide open.
Yeah, it's great that he's got years of control, but he's also now an older guy. Like, how many teams want the 2 years of control on a guy
Houston?
in his 30s?
Houston?
Houston would make sense.
Isn't he a Texas boy? Do I have that right on JMO? I want to say I'm betting.
I have zero idea.
Boom, nailed it. I'm a genius. Went to high school in the Woodlands, which is in the Houston area. So again, not everyone vibes with that, by the way, the hometown stuff. So yeah, I know we kind of throw that out as a thing in sports, but like some guys don't want to go back to their hometown. They don't like that added pressure. But I don't know where JMO's at on that, but Houston does need a pitcher.
I don't know if Cleveland wants a guy of his age
that they'd have to pay for next year too.
They pay for the next couple of years. But he would make a lot of sense for Cleveland.
Because their pitching has not been there this year. Yeah. So this is a situation where, okay, we get ourselves a JMO to stabilize the pitching.
Maybe if the Cubs are willing to like eat some of that money in order to like make it, get more back in return. Like I could see something like that.
Agreed. I think that makes some sense there.
Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense, which I would
back to Pittsburgh. Oh my God, could you imagine? He comes home and helps lead him to a playoff. I would love that. So Jameson Taillon, we're a big fan. Go ahead.
I said, I mean, I think that's my favorite fit. I just don't know if they're going to trade him in division like that.
That'd be awesome. A guy that we have loved over the years, but not so much this year with his 5.01 ERA is Frankie Montas. Look, like I said, been a huge backer when he was with Oakland, but once he went to Cincinnati, I was kind of out this year, and I have not regretted that decision in any real way. He's home for both. Chicago, he gets the Cubs and the Giants. You doing anything with Frankie Montas this week?
I mean, in 15s, I can see myself doing it just because these are two good matchups that, the back half could be even better if the Giants, do look to sell guys. So, but in 10s and 12s, like Montas just not been good enough to even consider there.
No, you got to be really careful. I think even in 15s with the home runs that he's been allowing, but it will be a consideration because 15s are barren. Alec Marsh gets the dream two-step, and so does Michael Wacha. I think these are both automatics. They go to the White Sox and to Detroit. Any objection on Marsh or Wacha?
No, I think you're starting both guys with these matchups. March has not been as good as he was early on in the season, but as long as you keep the ball in the yard, he can be a pretty effective pitcher. So I think with these matchups, you got to roll with him.
Yeah, Waka's much more firm than Marsh, so let's rank him a good bit higher. But if you're streaming, which is what it is with two steps, this is what you need. This is what you're looking for out of Marsh. And so, yes, he's been wobbly in July, as Justin points out, but you're not going to find a much better situation than this for Alec Marsh. Real chance to get 2 wins here, unless my Tigers thwart him. We are playing well lately. A guy I can never quit. We got 5 more years before I maybe finally realize that Griffin Canning might not be the guy I want him to be. But you know what? I'll keep trying. He comes in, puts up another good start this week. This time at Seattle, 5 innings, 1 run. He did have to bounce back from a disastrous trip to Oakland where he gave up 6 earned, and this is why I
on
can't
my
trust him.
fucking bench too. It fucking hurts.
The Seattle start, he had the gem on your bench.
Yeah, because like he had gotten, he'd left his previous start with elbow issues, and I was all like, and I had a bunch of guys who were on 2 starts this week, so I had some tough decisions, and so I was like, well, I think there's an outside chance that Griffin Canning doesn't even make the start, and he just goes out and shoves. God, stats are so great this year.
Your bench is winning the overall.
Yeah,
that is the underrated awful part of pitchers like this. We all talk about like, okay, yeah, you take beatings from them, but they create this uncertainty that you never know when to start them. So you end up missing the gems too. It's really, really frustrating. That said, Justin, it's Colorado and the Mets at home. And I know the Mets are strong, so I'm not saying it's 2 great starts, but they're both at home, one of which is Colorado. Are we back on the Griffin Canning train this week?
Well, and I mean, what are the Mets going to do here at the deadline? Like, are they buyers or sellers?
They should take Canning with them when they leave LA.
They absolutely should, honestly. I think you would roll with this definitely in 15s.
Yeah.
But I think some 10s and 12s, especially if you're win seeking, that first, for first Colorado, like Colorado's bad. Like, and they've got to be a team that's selling too, so they may move.
I mean, they always have to be, but they never properly do.
I just don't know what Colorado would move. Like at this point, like they said
McMahon.
They're not going to. No, they said yesterday they're not trading McMahon.
No, I know they're stupid. They are a stupid organization. You said what would they trade?
Nobody's taking Chris Bryant. I know I've seen some Brendan Rodgers,
your favorite player.
Yeah, stuff out there, but like. Maybe Elias Diaz, but like they don't have much, and like no one's
Quantrill,
Charlie Blackmon. Yeah, I guess they could move. I mean, they could move any of their pitchers. Like, I mean, for a team that's
not Freeland, he still has like 3 years left.
Yeah,
16 mil. It's not that terrible, but it is 2 more years of 16 mil per for Cal Freeland, so probably not.
Ryan Feltner is their only 20-year-old pitcher. Like, I mean, they could
and they won't trade him.
Yeah.
They at least have to keep him. Yeah, no, I get it. They are a clown organization, so who knows what they will do, but they should consider making some moves. But yeah, we like Griffin Canning, especially against those Rockies. If you can just get the Rockies start, all the better. But if you have to take the both, I will do it in 15s, and I'm pretty open to it in 12s as well with Griffin Canning. Edward Cabrera goes to Tampa Bay and to Atlanta with the Marlins. I don't even know if he's going to have a full lineup behind him. Are you seeing anything out of Edward Cabrera and his hot 7.04 ERA that could get you to start this?
I mean, no.
Okay. I just got to ask,
He out of his last, 7 starts, only one of them's gone deep enough to even qualify for a win. And
brutal.
He has a 211 home run per 9 right now. Like it's so bad I can't even get it out of my mouth.
How? How?
And his walk rate is 13.5%. Like, just dude, like it's so crazy to me because there's so many times we talk about starting pitchers in Major League Baseball that we go, man, I wish they would just give him a chance to start. I wish they would just, I can't believe they moved him, moved him into the bullpen already. And then there are guys like Edward Cabrera who just scream reliever, could be a really good reliever that the teams just give unlimited chances to start.
That is true, and it's hilarious.
I don't know that I would start Edward Cabrera in an NL only, much less a mixed league.
I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. Yeah, NL only, no. There's nothing right now that's got me convinced that I can get Edward Cabrera.
And next year there'll be people with him on their sleeper list because every year people
dollar pickup.
He's only 26.
I know. The funny thing is, we're making that joke, but he has a young arm, relatively, who is still live, right? There is still a world where Edward Cabrera could figure it out.
Great stuff, but Edward Cabrera has never commanded or controlled a pitch. It's just
a single pitch. He just has no idea.
Yeah.
But it is true. It is so difficult. He has never had anything close to consistent control. His best walk rate in a given year is 11%. His career walk rate is 14%. So that's why he's way off the radar right now. And I cannot touch Edward Cabrera. I could see myself starting Colin Rea. I have benefited from some of this Colin Rea greatness this year with some streams. Believe it or not, I've taken the plunge a couple times and come out clean. 360 ERA, 121 whip. We talk about certain organizations that just kind of cultivate pitching out of thin air. Milwaukee is at least on the list. This year is a major testament to that. We've talked about Freddie Peralta and his merry band of idiots, the guys behind him. Not that they're actually idiots. We're just being silly and talking about how they're kind of no names, which they are. And Colin Rea's part of that, but he's been awesome. And I know it's an 11% strikeout minus walk and 8% swing strike rate. Neither of those metrics will get you going. But the ratios are there, and he has 9 wins. You talk about win seeking. Colin Rea hosts Atlanta and goes to Washington. How do you feel about this?
Oh man, I mean, my initial reaction whenever we're talking about Colin Rea is to be like, no, I don't believe this. Like, it's just, and like, but I mean, he's got a pretty decent walk rate. Like, his home run rate is close to league average. And like, he's going up against 2 offenses here that are 20th and 21st in OPS versus right-handed pitching. So this isn't the worst start for a guy who's been pretty effective all season. So I think, like, in 10s, I think he's debatable depending on what the other options are. But I think in 12s and 15s, you're rolling with him.
I think so too. That's just where I'm at right now with Colin Rea. He just keeps doing it, and I don't know. Like, there's risk, of course, but I don't know that you have to totally run from him. I think you can confidently give him some love here and take the shot in 15s and 12s. Another guy who I don't know if he's quite close to graduating off this list, but somebody. Okay, so I was gonna say I'm in between, kind of saying that Simeon Richardson goes to the Mets and to the White Sox. 3.27 ERA, 111 WHIP on the season in 88 innings. You're ready to graduate SWR off the 2-step?
Yeah, I mean, Simeon Richardson is not the most electric pitcher, but he knows how to pitch. Like, this is a young guy that I think is going to have like a pretty long career in Major League Baseball as one of those kind of glue guys in fantasy rotations. Like, he's never going to be an ace, but like, I think he's going to just be a very, very good kind of number 4 starter in fantasy. And I think you're starting him pretty much on every single league. Like, he's just done a great job of keeping the ball in the yard and not walking guys. He'll volume strikeouts, but like, he's been great all season, and I'm honestly shocked because so I do the Roto write up most days, and I do streaming pictures. He's one of my most used streaming pictures for that article, and that has mean he's below 50% rostered in CBS leagues, which is crazy to me because he's been really, really good. I don't know if it's a combination of came up, later, he didn't start the year on the team, or because he's in Minnesota and people just don't pay attention to some Midwest teams. But like, he's been great. Like, I think he's a must start at this point.
Yeah, I really think Simeon Richardson is right there on that cusp of must startdom. And I do feel comfortable, at least right now, graduating him off the 2-step list, which, you don't get a 2-step every week. So it might only be 2 more times that he would even appear. But with what we're getting right now, I don't know why we have to question. I sat down for the start against Philly with him because Zach Wheeler was on the other side. It's like, I want to see how he goes against an ace. And I know he's not like going against him, but sometimes guys step up, these younger guys, when they get a chance to go up against an ace and show what they can do. He went 6 scoreless to Zach Wheeler's 7 scoreless. It was a hell of a game. The only sour note was that Yohan Duran actually got smoked and blew the game. But as a Tigers fan, I actually didn't hate that, if I'm being quite honest. But I was really, really impressed with Simeon Richardson. I probably watched like 4 or 5 of his starts this year because he's faced my Tigers, and then just random other starts. But I've come away impressed consistently. And so, yeah, I really, really like SWR. Remember, he was a big piece in the Jose Barrios deal, but he was not the main draw. That was to be Austin Martin. And now it's pretty clear that he's the dude, Simeon Woods Richardson, and then Martin is kind of the throw-in at this point because we don't really have high hopes for him being anything more than kind of a utility player type. Cardinals have a pair of guys that could do it, but as you were hinting at earlier, they could be trading for guys that could move Andre Pallante out of the mix here. Probably not Lance Lynn. I'm not saying he's been so good that he's immovable, but I think they just trust him. So I think Gray, Gibson, Michaelis, and Lynn are going to stick. And then if they get somebody, it's Pallante who'd be on the outside looking in. But as it stands right now, he is set up along with Lynn for them to both face Texas and then go to the Cubs. Let's start with Pallante. How do you feel about these two Cardinals?
I mean, Pallante is a pretty boring pitcher in general. He has been worse at home this year.
Oh, interesting.
But he has only given up technically 2 home runs at home, but really 1 because one of their home starts was that start in Alabama.
Right.
For the Field of Dreams kind of.
Did he start the Rickwood game?
Yeah, he started the Rickwood game versus.
Oh wait, no. You're talking about the Negro League game or the Field of Dreams game?
The Negro League game.
Yeah.
Versus the Giants.
Right.
I only remember this because it was like Pallante versus Jordan Hicks, and I think my wife made the joke or made the comment why couldn't we get some really good pitchers for this one? And I was like, well, they're trying to honor Willie Mays because he just died, and they're trying to get some offense going.
Right.
So, he's a fine. He's actually if you look at overall stat line, Pallante has been fine.
Not too bad, right?
3.92 ERA. He sometimes gets into trouble with walks. He doesn't give up home runs for the most part. Like I said, he's only given up 1 home run at his actual home this year. When you have these kind of matchups where first one is a little bit scary versus Texas, but the second one at the Cubs, and like I said, end of the week at the Cubs is actually a pretty darn good spot. So I think at 15, I would risk this here. 10s and 12s, I don't know if he gets enough strikeouts where I'm taking the risk here, but the fact that the Cubs may be barren by the time we get to the end of the week, I think gives you a good opportunity to take kind of advantage of this in deeper leagues.
I think so too with Pallante. I like him in 15s. I'm actually a little bit closer in 12s. I think too. I hear you on the strikeouts. So again, it depends what's available and what you need. But if you are more of the trying to get a win and maybe get some decent ratios. Now he's got a 3.92 ERA and 1.33 WHIP for Andre Pallante this year. His ratios have not been great, but when he's good, that's what you're getting is quality ratios and a win potential because he goes deep into games. His 3 starts here in July have been 7, 6 1/3, and 6. So that's what you're going for if you're going for Pallante. He might not get the Cubs start if they pick up somebody, so that's a risk you're taking. But I do like him in 15s and a bit more in 12s. Lance Lynn, our boy, we have been gigantic fans of his over the many years. He's back where it all began with the Cardinals, and he's been himself. He's been like present day Lance Lynn as opposed to throwback, but a 4.17 ERA is palatable. The 1.39 WHIP is not though, and that is a little bit risky. So he has definitely been a spotty streamer. I wouldn't even say team streamer. I think you can kind of just pick your spots with Lance Lynn. Maybe team streamer in 15s just because the waiver pool is horrendous. But where you at on our guy Lance Lynn here? He has a 3.59 ERA at home, 4.81 on the road with a similar WHIP split, 118 to 162, but you got 1 home, 1 road. Are you getting there with our boy Lance Lynn this week?
So Lance Lynn should have a warning label attached to him, warning you if you already have high blood pressure, you should not watch a Lance Lynn.
Like a Surgeon General warning, like just on his jersey in that same font.
I'm smoking a cigarette right now. Those packs come with a Surgeon General warning. I mean, Lance Lynn should come with a similar one because he is bad for your health.
True.
You just never know what you're going to get from Lance Lynn. Now, again, I think in deeper leagues, you can take the gamble here that, he can survive versus Texas, and then he's got a pretty juicy start at Chicago with a team that is going to be worse than it is the beginning of the week. But I mean, this is a massive risk. We're talking about, if he allows a ton of contact, we're only 2 starts removed from him getting absolutely destroyed in Washington, like one of the worst offenses in baseball.
Okay, relax. They
I
got some of
mean,
your
they
favorite players
are.
out there. Say CJ Abrams and Luis Garcia Jr. No, you're not wrong. They're
I
not an
mean,
amazing offense.
like they're the 21st team in OPS versus right-hand pitching this year. So like
It's
they're
not
not
amazing.
not a good offense. And then like he also got destroyed by Miami, who is
that was
like the
so bad.
27.
Yeah.
Like you just never know what you're gonna get with Lance Lynn. So like I think for me, it's less about league size and more about where I'm at in the standings. Can I afford a blow up?
Yes, that's the good question.
Are my ratios in a spot where I can, because I think he's going to be in line for a win, right? Like he's going up against Chicago. I don't know who's projected to pitch against him. Let's see. It would be Justin Steele. So probably not. Like he's probably not going to be in line for a win.
The one starter you don't want to face there if you're trying to get a win is Steele, who looks like he's.
Now that I'm saying it, I don't think I'm starting Lance Lynn in any league.
I don't think so either. I'm way more in on Pallante. Yeah. And I know that's sacrilege for this pod because again we
love Lance Lynn, but
I root for him. I want him to do well. If next week
there becomes a time with every pitcher that you go, listen, I've loved you in the past, but no longer can I support like running you out into my lineup. Like I still love Kyle Gibson, like as a person, as a gardener, as a bit on the show. Like but like I don't trust you enough to be on my fantasy team anymore. And Lance Lynn is now in that Kyle Gibson area.
Couldn't agree more. And they both happen to be on the Cardinals. But, even my boy Justin Verlander is not like the most must-have fantasy guy anymore. Like you said, time comes for us all in sports. It might have come for you last night with your busted hammy.
Absolutely.
Yariel Rodriguez is at Baltimore and at the Yankees. Live arm with some intrigue. No freaking shot I'm starting this anywhere.
So when I write out my 2-start pitchers for the week later today, he is going to be in like that tier of like, kind of the here we go tier. Like, I don't know what you're going to get. These are really, really tough matchups that could become tougher. Like, we've been talking about a number of teams that are probably going to be sellers that we might want to attack. But like, these are 2 teams that are definitely going to add. Now, I don't know if either of these offenses can get better necessarily. Like, I think both these teams, when they add, they're going to add pitching. So I don't know if they necessarily get better. But the problem with Yariel Rodriguez, if you could guarantee me he's going 5 in these starts, then I'd start him, even with these stuff.
Just to take the 6 to 7 strikeouts?
Yeah, but you can't guarantee me that. Like, there's a really good chance he does not qualify for a win. In Toronto's offense may get worse and not be able to support him. And
their bullpen, which is already bad, could get further depleted too. So I think that's totally fair.
I think this is a super, super risky 2-step that I'm probably not even rolling in 15s.
This is YOLO desperation where you're trying to just, take anything that has upside and it's a bad decision, but you're 15th in ERA right now anyway. And you're going to need a bunch of good stuff to possibly get going.
If you're at a point right now where you're looking at punting ratios, Yariel Rodriguez is your friend.
Might as well take the shot. Yeah. Okay, what about Dynasty real quick on Yariel Rodriguez? Have you been impressed with what we've seen from 39 innings? Like, do you think he's somebody for next year and beyond that you like, Yariel Rodriguez?
Yes and no. I mean,
okay.
I think the stuff is really good and really intriguing. So, like, in that regards, yes. This has reliever profile written all over it for me, though, and that becomes my main concern. Is I don't know. Now, on the plus side, like we've mentioned, Toronto, I think, is tearing this down.
They kind of have to.
Yariel Rodriguez, they've got, and he's 27, so there's no reason for them to jettison him. They've got him through 2027 at a pretty good AV. So like, I don't think that Yariel Rodriguez is a trade candidate or anything like that.
No.
And I think he's locked into the rotation kind of moving forward. Like, I think
at least for this rest of this year into next year, I would think.
Yeah, and I think they'll use next year as a good opportunity to kind of see if Rodriguez is a starter long term. Now, he's not making so much money where they can't move him into the bullpen if they decide. But this is going to be a bad team next year, and I think he's going to start. So I think if you're like me and in dynasty leagues, you're really thinking about the immediate future. You're not necessarily, unless you're completely tearing it down, you're not thinking about the long term future. I think he's perfect. But for those of you who think more long term than I do in dynasty leagues, I think at the end of the day, unless there are some massive changes to his control, I think he's going to end up in the bullpen at some point.
I think that's a fair concern with Yariel Rodriguez. We'll have to see how the development goes. You mentioned that he is 27, and I don't know if this concept has like legitimacy to it, but his arm feels younger because he threw a bunch of innings in Cuba, right? Like that checks out to you, right? Like he's been in Cuba and Japan, never eclipsing 100 innings in any season. 2019, in fact, they listed 2019-20, so I imagine it's a winter league that carries over to the following calendar year. But the highest he ever had was 99 2/3, literally an out shy of 100. So while he is 27, which isn't even old in itself, he's kind of like an age 24, 25 type arm from a volume standpoint. Well, so I'm willing to give him some time.
And from a development standpoint, like when you give up that amount of time because, he defected, from Cuba. I'm pretty sure they were on a trip to Japan, and he's just like,
I think that's exactly what happened. Yep.
So I think losing that development time, maybe that's one of the reasons why you would bet on a Yariel Rodriguez, because the stuff is so good. He's now getting full-time development, and now maybe he can kind of take steps forward while he's a major leaguer. So, I think in dynasty, I think this is a guy that I would want to have on my team.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for me. Yariel Rodriguez, and agreed. I think at the worst, or not at the worst, but like the secondary alternative is that you end up with a closer in a dynasty league.
Oh yeah.
Last guy. Sure. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think for sure, like if he's not a starter, then he could be an elite closer.
Yeah, and because Romano's getting up there in age, and he's had a ton of injury issues this year. A guy that we were loving early on, maybe we're starting to see the pumpkining here of our boy Mitchell Parker. I was really, really impressed with what he was able to do early. Had a deep enough arsenal to get lineups out, was really taking on all comers with a difficult schedule. We all remember that it was Dodgers Houston that he first dazzled us against, and then has continued to be pretty good through June. Took a 3.32 ERA into this month. The wheels have come off a bit. 3 ugly starts out of 4. The fourth being an amazing start, though, and that's what kind of keeps me intrigued because his ERA has gone from 3.32 to 4.34. So it's gone up a full run for Mitchell Parker, which is obviously very bad. The Mets cooked him. The Milwaukee Brewers absolutely ate his lunch, 5 earned in 2/3 of an inning. And then just recently this week, the Padres smoked him for 6 runs in 3 innings. But again, the fourth of those 4 starts, or the other of those 4 starts, because that was the second of the 4, 7 innings, 2 runs, 1 of them earned against St. Louis. So there was still a nice glimpse there. I think this is probably just some regression back to where Mitchell Parker, quote unquote, belongs, which is as like a team streamer in 15s and then a standard streamer in 12s. I'm not fully out. This has been rough, but I'm not completely out. At Arizona, home to Milwaukee, I tell you, the Milwaukee one scares me enough, though, that probably a yes in 15s, but that's about it right now because he's been so rough. Where do you stand currently on Mitchell Parker, who is in the midst of hitting his rookie wall right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things I warned about with Mitchell Parker kind of earlier on in the season is guys that allow the amount of contact that Mitchell Parker does can have like really, really bad stretches. You need to be really precise with your pitches when you allow this much contact. You've got to induce a ton of weak contact, and all of a sudden he's not. Like he's just not able to execute his stuff in the way that he was earlier on in the season. If we're looking at just this week, the back end of this scares the crap out of me because when you're a starting pitcher that allows as much contact as Mitchell Parker does, and you go up against a team like Milwaukee, who all they do is make contact, and this offense could get better at the end of the week.
Yep.
Even without Christian Yelich, I think this is one I want to avoid. I'm not super enthused about the idea of starting a guy like Mitchell Parker, and like Arizona's starting to play better too. So like
I don't love facing them. I want to be clear on
Yeah.
that. Milwaukee scares me more, but I'm not like
Yeah.
giddy to face Arizona because I agree that they're a team that I fully respect. Like, and I think they can get you any given week.
If the puck move, tells you anything, it's this team that could get better too over the weekend.
Exactly.
Like, not only are they pulling off trades, like they're already pulling off trades. So like Monday is before the trade deadline, but they may add pieces this weekend. So I don't think I'm starting Mitchell Parker anywhere, but I understand people starting him in a 15.
Would you hold in 15? So I said I have him as a team streamer, meaning that if I don't start him, I'm still going to bench. Are you open to that if you don't use Mitchell Parker?
I think at 15 you have to, because
I think
there's
so
just
too.
no other options on the wire. Like I just don't see being in a lot of leagues where guys are available that or at least locked into rotation spots and not just god awful. So I think I would hold on to Mitchell Parker and be kind of a team streamer, but I want nothing to do with Milwaukee.
I'm with that. And as a Mitchell Parker believer for a lot of this year, I'm still tapping the brakes here. Let's relax and not get ourselves bludgeoned again. Remember, they were the ones that put the biggest bludgeoning on him. 5 earned in 2/3 of an inning. And as I always say, just because that happened before doesn't mean that they're instantly going to do it again. But that's a team that has consistently, Milwaukee, beaten up guys. And even though they're in first, and I'm not saying no one respects them or anything, but I don't think that they get the fear in fantasy that they should.
No, because they don't have the quote unquote star
Exactly.
that you kind of look at.
Because even people undersold how great Yelich has been this year prior to the injury. Right. He was back. And he was back last year too, by the way. This wasn't his first good year of recent ilk, but like Yelich was back, but then the rest of the lineup is just strong. It's not super duper stars, but there is no weakness either. So Milwaukee is terrifying. All right, Justin, that's going to do it. 2 steps, a little dicey out there next week. Be careful. And obviously we're getting into the home stretch here as we're a week away from flipping the calendar to August, not even a full week. Meaning you need to start making some decisions. I know you said around the All-Star break that you're not punting anything. Where are you on potentially punting right now as you assess things after the All-Star break? If you're not in an overall where punting is really, really difficult, are you at a point now where you're going to start to make decisions on stats to maybe punt the rest of the way?
I think now is the time where you start making decisions on, like, if you're in an NFBC style format where there is an overall, where you need to make a realistic determination whether or not you can compete for an overall. And then you need to also make decisions on certain categories. So like if you're really far behind in a certain category, and like changing a strategy can mean that you can start to climb up. You may not win first place, but second place gets paid out in most leagues too. So like starting to think about these type of things, starting to think about, hey, like, if I'm really far behind in, I don't know, in saves, especially. Saves is a big one.
Yeah, saves and steals are the easy ones to be like, fuck, I can't.
For some people, like power, right? Like, maybe you just decide to punt power, if you're buried in those standings. But yeah, now is the time you should be making those decisions and starting to implement a plan for the stretch run. Just because so many people are going to tune out here over the course of the next month.
No doubt. It just happens. Even in the NFBC universe where the competition is tougher, it doesn't mean that everyone's a perfect player that never gives up on a team, right? And I never mean to imply that. If it sounds like I do, I love playing in the NFBC, but football's pull is huge. Maybe not the college football video game. I don't think that that's taking fantasy folks away, but fantasy football will, because that's a big money maker for a lot of these premier players too. And so if their teams are lingering in 7th, 8th, even though that might be a contending team if they put a lot of effort into it, some of these folks are also playing like 15 teams. They have to make cuts. So like all the teams that are 8th and below, they're gonna push off to the side a little bit and just kind of keep a good lineup. Things happen. Stay grinding, but it is time to start making decisions on some of those punts. And I think this is a good time on the saves because after the deadline, you see where the dust settles. And if no real closers emerge that you think can fix your issues, then we punt and we no longer care about saves. We go 9 starters the rest of the way, stuff like that. All right, Justin, good luck with Fab and everything this week. Are you and Jason getting together? He needs love if you guys are, because he is lamenting the loss of Randy Arozarena.
I don't know. I gotta check with him. But my wife has a family reunion I'm supposed to do on Sunday.
Okay.
Though if my leg is feeling like it is, or actually no, maybe that's Saturday.
Then you might be out for that. That's tomorrow.
Yeah, like
I got you on the IL for that. I think I got a
2-hour drive, then hanging out at park. I may try to weasel my way out of.
I think you got a valid reason, right?
Yeah.
It now,
has
if you were
nothing
just
to do
scamming,
with 2 hours in the car there and back with my mother.
No,
like, nothing.
No. That it is purely the leg and only the leg, and I will not tolerate accusations to the contrary. I rest my case, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yes.
Anyway, good luck. Hopefully you feel better, and we will talk on Monday.
Take it easy.